Hello team, today's challenge is rental cost, where we're given a day it was rented on, this whatever this item is, right? They don't really specify what the thing is, but whatever this item was that we rented, that's the start date and the day we returned it on. And then based on the tier, which is up here, 1 day, 3 days, or 7 days, we need to calculate a cost. And it's curious to me that the if you return it on time, sorry, not online. If you return it on time, this is a fixed rate. So the base cost is not a per day rate, right? It is a per rental rate, which means why wouldn't you always just rent it at 7 days, right? Because it's way cheaper. So if you're only going to pay, you can either pay $5 or you can pay $3, right? I'm going to pay $3 because that's how it goes. So some interesting math going on there, but the late fee kind of makes sense. We can absolutely use that. In fact, we can go over to our code and get started. What I've done is I've moved that table information into here. Okay, so I have the 1, 3, and 7, our base rates, our late rates. In fact, I should probably just rename these to something like base rate. That feels a little bit better. This can be the late rate. I don't know if that makes any more sense, but we absolutely can, right? And we'll be able to use that information. And then down here, we start to get our dates, because the easiest way to do this is to transform it into a date. So we're going to go const rented date, just like this, or rent date. One of those, it's going to be equal to new date, and we're going to pass in rented, just like this. We're also going to use rented for our expected return date. So let's go and do that right away. That's going to be expected date. And then one more time right here, this is going to be our return date. And I think we can just use multi-cursors to get that done. So the rent date, the return date, and then the expected date. But we aren't done with the expected date yet. Because of how the date API works, we're not able to chain these together, which feels very awkward to me. Instead, we need to do in-place changes. So we take that expected date, paste it down here, and go set UTC date, okay? Keeping in mind that day is the day of the week, date is the day of the month. So right here, we want to do that, and that's going to be based on our tier, right? So we need to get the rent date, just like this. And what are we doing? Well, we are adding our tier, okay? In fact, I did that totally wrong. It is rent date dot get UTC date, right? Date, just like this, passing it in as a method. Brilliant, okay? So we get the current rent date and we add on the number of days to that to get our day. Still not done though, okay? Instead, we need to go set UTC hours, okay? Like this, it is plural, which we'll come back to that in a second when we talk about temporal. But right here, we set that to 12. And then because some of these are returned on the 30s or the 45s or the 10s, we need to take care of all that stuff. We need to know what that is. So once more, we need to bring this down and go minutes, just like this, and set that to 0. So it's going to be 12 o'clock on our specific date, right? Whatever that math is. Great. So now we have all this information and we can use it, okay? Down here, we calculate our late diff, right? This is going to be how many days we're late, okay? And we do the return date, just like this, minus the expected date, okay? Which gives us a number in milliseconds, because all these dates, once we start doing math, it is in milliseconds. So what we actually need to do is convert this to the number of days, right? Let's go do that. We'll call it duration to days, okay? A function that we haven't created. Bouncing up, creating that function. Duration, let's call this msecs for milliseconds. And what are we doing? Actually, I guess I could just do ms, couldn't I? Silly me. Anyway, I'm already there, so I'm going to stick with it. Day, Okay, do you know how many milliseconds is in a day? I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it is 864,000. I only know that because I went and looked it up, right? So I could still be wrong. The way that I always do this is I just do the math, right? So here's 1,000 seconds times 1,000 milliseconds times 60 seconds times 60 minutes times 24 hours. And then we use that. So return msecs divided by day. Brilliant. Okay. This could be a floating number. So let's go and round it. We're going to go math.theal. So we're always rounding up because if we're over, there's a chance that if we round the wrong way, we might be under, and we don't want that. We always want to round up to the next one to take care of that. So all that takes care of that, which means that down here we have our late diff in days, which means that now we get into the actual calculating stuff. Okay. So we go in here and we get our base rate and our late rate. Okay. And we peel those off of the tiers, just like this, .get, and that will be based on tier. Should we have a little bit of safety net to make sure that our tier is actually in there? Probably, right? Today I'm not going to do that, but you know, we should be adding those guardrails, right? In real life, I definitely would, because there's a chance that they toss in anything into the here, right? We should also be checking to make sure the format of these is right? That's all great stuff for TypeScript, as an example, okay? But base rate, late rate, we can use that. So let total equal base rate, just like this. If I really wanted to, I could set this const to a let and just change base rate, right? So I could have that be in here and just go along with it. I'm not really going to do that. I'm going to separate it out because I like that. But with that, we have our late fee, okay? And once we get the late fee, in fact, we have that total. We can just go and toss that in. So just jumping ahead for a second, we have total dot to fixed like this, and we toss in a 2, and if we hit this, we should get half of these passing. We absolutely do, right? We need to take care of the late fees. So that's our next step, which is right here, okay? This big empty space. It is an if. Now, with late diff, okay, the way that I set this up, and I did it this way on purpose, is that we always calculate this. Always, always, always. But if they return before or equal to the expected return date, then it's going to be either minus or 0, right? The sign on this is going to be possibly negative because it's pretty rare to return it at the exact moment that you need to. So with this, there's a very good chance that it's either going to be a positive number or a negative number. And in a very select few cases, it might be 0, right? Very rare, could happen, but we don't need to worry about that, okay? Because all we really care about is if this is positive, right? Our return date is sometime in the future. If we subtract it from our expected date, which was in the past, we get a positive number, right? So if that is positive, then we know that we need to calculate the late. Hopefully that's making a lot of sense, because right here we go math.sign and we get that late diff, which peels off the sign and lets us know if it is -1, 0, or 1. 1 being the positive form, right? So with that, if that's true, then we do our penalty, right? So we calculate our penalty just like this. It's going to be equal to the late diff times the late rate, right? Just like this. So whatever our days are, that's here. Maybe I should have named this as late days, right? Let's go do that really fast. Right here, days. So late days to make it more noticeable. So late days times late rate, and then we add that to the total. So total plus equals penalty. Brilliant. And it works, right? It's a lot of work because we have to jump through these hurdles to get the date information. But once we do that, all the math kind of lines up and makes sense, hopefully. Okay. And of course, our little helper function, because date works in milliseconds since APOC, right? 1970 sometime. So we figured it out. Now, if, because we're here, we can quickly do this where we take this. We don't really need to comment this one out, but I will. I'm going to bring it down, and we're going to do something with temporal. Okay, so we're going to see what it looks like really fast with temporal. Right above here, I'm going to do date time, just like this. We're going to set that equal to temporal dot zoned date time. Okay, very important. Date time, this the Zulu. Okay, so the capital Z on the end of here for Zulu or UTC time. Okay, if we pass this string into temporal, it'll throw its hands up and it'll say, I don't like it. The reason that it does that is because it expects this timestamp to be time zone agnostic. So whatever you enter, it's supposed to be our relative time zone. Right now I'm in mountain time. Wherever you are, it'll be that time. Because a lot of it is date math. So you're actually calculating durations and stuff like that. And when you do that, the time zone kind of falls away. So they set it up that way. But because we have time zone information in there, we need to work around that, which means that we can't use our standard right down here. We couldn't use temporal dot plain date time. Instead, we need to use this zoned date time, which is kind of annoying because there's an extra step in here, right? And that happens right here. So this date, we're going to get rid of it. It's going to be date time. We're going to use from, and we have these two strings. We need to pass in a time zone, even though we have the time zone as the Zulu, the Z, right? We still need to pass in a time zone marker for the time zone that we want it to be translated to, which is very weird to me, but here's how it looks. We take this, wrap this up, add a $sign so that we are adding in some square brackets, okay? These square brackets take that time zone. It could be, as an example, what would it be? Like Pacific Los Angeles or something like that. I'm totally making that up. But in this case, we can do UTC. Okay, so it was UTC. We're telling it that we want to keep it as UTC, and this gets the job done, which means it's a little bit weird, right? It's a little bit weird, but it allows us to do some other stuff down here. So instead of all of this, we can do that rent date, right? So our expected date is going to be rent date with allows us to do an adjustment, and it returns a brand new temporal object, right? So we don't need to worry about all of this stuff down here. We just pass in some arguments like day and hour and minute, okay? Just like we always have. Now, here's what I was hinting at before, where these are all singular, but in a few seconds, you're going to see that there are places in temporal where we use the plural version. So it flips back and forth, which is kind of annoying. If you find that this isn't working, it might be that you accidentally typed days, right? As an example. So kind of curious stuff, but we can make it work, okay? So rent, date, dot, what is it? Day, right? Day, there it is. And we go plus tier, just like we did down here, right? The plus tier, so that one's done. And then the hour, we set that to 12, just like we did down here, so that one's done. And the minute set to 0, which is this one right here, which technically means we can just get rid of those, right? With this, we no longer need duration to days. Instead, we go return date dot since, okay? So that gives us all of our information. The problem with this is that it's giving us a lot more than we need. We want it to round to days, but it also gives us some hours and stuff like that. So instead, we can go in here and send in an option, right? Where we do smallest unit. Okay, smallest unit, just like this. Not like that, sorry. Smallest unit is days. Day, days, day, days. Kind of weird, but it works. Okay. Rounding mode. Rounding mode is because up here, you remember we set it to math.ceil. Well, the rounding mode in Temporal is something else. I'm forgetting what it is right now. I think it's like it rounds to even or something like that. So we can force this to be ceil, okay? Which means that now we're getting pretty much the exact same thing that we had before, and it gets the job done, okay? Moving on down, this is all the same. This is all the same. This changes. So late days, right? Late days is this temporal duration, right? That's what we're doing here, which means that instead of using math.sign, we just use late days.sign. We get that information on there already, which means that down here, late days, again, it's a temporal duration, so we need to reach in and take days. Day, days, day, days. It's kind of weird, right? At this point, it still works, okay? But now we have switched to temporal. Again, some very curious decisions with zone date time, right? And of course, some of these rounding modes and the way that we have to reach in, but much the same math. The only real challenge, of course, is that it doesn't work in Safari yet, at least at the time of this video, right? But we can still play with it because I'm using Chrome. Maybe you are too, right? But that's it. We have two pretty good solutions. And honestly, this one here with the new date object supported in all browsers, and I think it's a couple lines shorter than this because of how the line wrapping works and all that stuff, right? So I would probably go with this one today. I feel like it's probably about the same, but it did need this extra helper function because we're dealing in milliseconds. So bringing it home, we brought in the information, we calculated our dates. We put them into the date API so that we could actually do that math, right here. And then using our helper function, we return that to days, right? So rounding out to days and then calculating the math for all that and returning exactly what they want, right? If we were using the temporal API, did I need to put this line here? Could I have just, instead of date time, could I have used temporal zone date time? Yeah, but it gets very long. So that's why I don't do it that way, right? Instead, I put it up here, which hopefully also saves me some performance, right? Because I'm only instantiating it once and just using it repeatedly, right? But again, creating that temporal time, we did need a little bit of fanciness here where it was already UTC and we were saying, keep it UTC, right? So we needed that flag in there. Then we did our translation right there. So we didn't have to do these inline items, right? This curious in-place changes, right? It returns something new, which is good. We did the math, which is good. And of course, calculated and return the number. And it all works, okay? That's it for today. Not every solution, just hopefully two good solutions, right? And if temporal was more readily available, then yeah, I would definitely keep exploring this because it feels like an easier time, an easier maintenance cycle going forward where I don't have to do that math in my head. I can just set it up and let it run. But for performance reasons, this is probably the way that I would end up going for right now, using the date API. Would you, right? Which one do you prefer? Which, or did you go a different way, right? Let me know all that stuff in the comments. If you liked it, if you hated, what you liked about it, what you hated about it. Again, I want to hear all that good stuff. And until next time, this has been Rental Cost, and I will see you in the next one.